In a world where old empires are consumed by the firestorm of the First World War, a German-born sculptor named Adolph creates a new dime design for the United States, which has Lady Liberty wearing the Roman god Mercury's winged cap. Opposite, a fasces battle axe, the symbol of Mussolini's fascist visions for a new Roman Empire. Why was this design approved by the US Mint? On today's regular coin review, we take a look at the Mercury Dime. Welcome to the History of Money channel, home of the most fire coin picks on YouTube. I'm Tom, and my regular coin today is this, the 1942 S Mercury Dime. After featuring a few coins that were pretty low grade, I chose this one for you, which is definitely uncirculated. Easily a mint state 62 or maybe 63. I believe that this one was purchased by my parents in 1979 when silver climbed toward the 1980 high of $50 an ounce. Being a kid, I was excited by their big bag of silver, so they let me handpick out a few really nice examples to keep and start my coin collection. The Mercury Dime is one of America's favorite collectible coins, despite being out of circulation for almost 80 years now, probably because many consider it to be the most attractive US 10-cent coin. If you have joined the consensus of collectors who agree that this dime is one of the most beautiful coins ever created, let's dive into its origins and complex symbolism. As I discussed in my last video, every US coin design was updated between 1907 and 1921, but for now it's important to know that the three silver coins in production in 1915, the dime, quarter dollar, and half dollar, all had the same portrait of Liberty designed by Charles E. Barber in 1892. Born in Germany in 1870, Adolph, his mother, and brother moved to the US when he was 10, the same year that his father, a shoemaker, passed away. The young Weinman soon developed an impressive talent for engraving, carving, sculpting, and drawing, and eventually began working with many famous sculptors. At age 15, he became an apprentice to Frederick Kaldenberg, a collaborator of Augustus St. Gaudens, the greatest American sculptor and medallic artist of this period. After a year, Weinman also joined the New York City Cooper Union, where he was first exposed to sculpture, and the Arts Students League, where he would later study under St. Gaudens until 1898, when St. Gaudens moved to Paris. In 1905, Weinman again collaborated with St. Gaudens to produce a medal for Theodore Roosevelt's second presidential inauguration. Because St. Gaudens was weakening from colon cancer and wanted to complete other works for Roosevelt before he got too ill, he suggested that Weinman execute the molds. This experience was critical for Weinman moving closer to working directly with the US Mint. Thanks to Mint Director Robert W. Woolley's misinterpretation of U.S. coinage law, he thought he was required to upgrade all three designs in 1916. In December 1915, Woolley met with the Commission of Fine Arts to review designs by sculptors Adolph Weinman, Herman McNeil, and Albin Polasek. The Standing Liberty design by Herman McNeil was chosen for the quarter, but designs by Weinman were chosen for the Liberty Walking half dollar and the Winged Liberty Head dime. Let's turn to the head side of the coin, known officially as the Obverse. Thomas L. Elder, an important contemporary coin dealer in New York City, gave this view. We have in the new United States dime, designed by Adolph Alexander Weinman, the handsomest American coin. The winged head of Liberty is a real portrait of great beauty and finish. Our American girl in this instance is youthful, refined, and of gentle expression. The addition of wings to the head is taken from the ancient art of emblems. The head is not unlike those of Roti and Chaplin, shown on so many modern French coins and medals. The obverse lettering is beautifully simple. Elder is referring to Parisian sculptors Louis Oscar Roti and Jules Clement Chaplin, who together began the Art Nouveau movement. Along with Augustus St. Gaudens, Adolph Weinman and Victor D. Brenner all studied from and sometimes apprenticed under the sculptors and medallists in the Parisian École des Beaux-Arts that took the world by storm in both the performing arts and the fine arts. In the early years of the 19th century, the first Napoleon, after stripping the galleries of Italy to enrich the Louvre, set himself the task of founding a truly national school of art at home. The cultivation of the arts, letters, and drama became almost as serious a consideration with him as the subjugation of the environing peoples. This policy of state-aided art was continued under the various paternal governments which succeeded him. Monuments were erected continually, Palaces and public buildings were decorated with mural paintings. The École des Beaux-Arts was founded and made free to all the students of all nations. All these things were paid for out of the public funds, and the world was enriched in so many different cultural disciplines. It is important to remember that our U.S. coinage was but one beneficiary. As contemporary numismatist Waite Raymond wrote, "The head of liberty has considerable resemblance to some coins of the Roman Republic and is very artistic." Just like the previous liberty had this one replaced, our American goddess is wearing a freed slave's red felt Phrygian cap, the Roman symbol that came to signify freedom and the pursuit of liberty in the American Revolution. But this liberty cap is strangely adorned with wings, which changes its symbolism and makes her look like the Roman god Mercury. Is this Our Lady Liberty? What other gods wore a winged head covering? Hermes is an Olympian deity in ancient Greek religion and mythology. Hermes was considered the herald of the gods. In myth, Hermes functioned as the emissary and messenger of the gods. He is also considered the protector of human heralds, travelers, thieves, merchants, and orators. He had the ability to move quickly and freely between the worlds of the mortal and the divine, aided by his winged sandals. During the time of the Roman Republic, starting around the 4th century BC, Roman religion was syncretized with Greek religion. Syncretism is the practice of combining different beliefs in various schools of thought, merging or assimilating several originally discrete traditions. Hermes was brought into Roman mythology and religion as Mercury, a name derived from the Latin merx, meaning merchandise, and the origin of the words merchant and commerce. The ancient depictions of Hermes and Mercury with a winged helmet are taken to symbolize his speed. But to set the facts straight, Mr. Weinman never intended his design for the obverse of the new dime introduced in 1916 to represent Mercury, that male fleet-of-foot Roman god of messengers. However, there is a third Greco-Roman deity depicted with a winged cap, and that was Roma. In the Roman religion, Roma was a female deity who personified the city of Rome and more broadly the Roman state. She was created and promoted to represent and propagate Rome's ideas about itself and to justify its rule. She was portrayed on coins, sculptures, architectural designs, and at official games and festivals. Roma is usually depicted dominant in military form with winged helmet, standing over piled weapons that represent her conquests and promising protection to the obedient. Roma's official cult, most prominent in the defeated Greek territories like Macedonia, served to advance the propagandist message of Imperial Rome. It's important to realize that the tradition of careful use of allegory and symbolism on coinage goes back to the very beginning of coinage itself. Everything depicted on a coin has a very specific meaning and purpose. In discussing each of the symbols on this dime, we needed to look back at each of the influences that came before it. Where the ancient pantheon of gods are concerned, for us in the modern world, they're just a personification of an idea. But in ancient times, gods were used by those in political power to control the religious life and thought life of their people. We normally associate the Greek and Roman gods with the mythological stories written about them, but this other component meant that the people had to acknowledge the gods that represented their state or city as divine, as well as their leaders. For modern man, there is little difficulty in distinguishing religion from philosophy, or from science or politics, but those distinctions are hardly universal categories. A 13th century thinker would find our clear division of religion and philosophy rather startling, and our marriage of logic and mathematics equally surprising. So too, our discrete categories of religion and politics were inexorably linked in ancient societies. Gods were honored by groups of men, families and states, and membership in those communities necessitated at least a nominal devotion to their gods. Belief and disbelief were political acts, and these words, religion and politics, define modern conceptions that impart confusion into discussions of Greek and Roman history and symbolism. In Constantine's Christian era, the divinity of Roma became irrelevant, while her symbolic force increased. Although the Christians rejected the gods and goddesses of pagan antiquity, they retained some personifications for the political and moral virtues they embodied. I believe that Weinman, in depicting liberty, the female deity personifying the United States of America, chose to add the winged helmet of the goddess Roma to enrich liberty's roots in the Roman Republican system of government. For a long time afterward, this dime was formally known as the winged liberty head within the halls of the Treasury Department, including in correspondence well into the 1940s, but not in many other places where the name Mercury Dime stuck. The device on the reverse is the Roman symbol of the fasces. The fasces, a classical Roman symbol of civic authority, consists of an axe within a bundle of rods bound together by a red strap. In the Roman Republican period, 531 to 509 BC, the highest elected political officials, called consuls, were elected yearly and given attendants called lictors, who carried the fasces while following the magistrate. For America's founding fathers, who read classical Greek, Roman, and biblical literature to gather the best ideas and structures to form their new nation, it's pretty easy to see how they would be attracted to the fasces as a representative of the new republic, a government constituted of and made stronger by the many states, along with the adoption of Pluribus Unum as the national motto, out of many, one. Indeed, as early as 1817, the fasces was used as a recurring motif in the U.S. Capitol building to represent the ideal of American democracy. Like the thin rods bound together, the small individual states achieve their strength and stability through their union under the federal government. Numismatists will all remember that Anthony Paquette designed some pattern coins in 1859 with the figure of Liberty sitting by a shield, holding a fasces in her hand. So this is not a new idea in United States coins. The fasces was a favorite emblem on the later coins of Louis XVI of France, and not a few are seen on other French coins, including those of the Mayence siege. The Roman Republic used it also. You see, Weinman designed the Mercury Dime in 1916, at least 3 years before the Italian dictator Benito Mussolini adopted this symbol for his cruel regime, and by doing so giving fascism a new and hated definition. Ironically, Mussolini, who made the fasces his actual symbol of state, ran roughshod over the original Roman tradition that he supposedly wanted to revive. At the time, Frank G. Duffield, editor of The Numismatist, contacted Adolph Weinman himself to learn more about the creation of his design. His reply: "Dear Sir, in response to your letter of November 14, requesting a word of explanation as to my reasons for selecting a winged female head for the design of the obverse and the fasces for the reverse of the new dime, permit me to say that the law on the coinage of the United States stipulates that on all subsidiary coins there shall appear on the obverse a figure or representation of liberty. Hence the head of liberty, the coin being obviously too small in size to make the representation of a full-length figure of liberty advisable. The wings crowning her cap are intended to symbolize liberty of thought. As to the reverse of the design, the law does not stipulate what is to appear upon this side of the coin, while it does specifically state that upon the reverse of the $quarter and the $half shall appear the figure of an eagle. I have selected the motifs of the fasces and olive branch to symbolize the strength which lies in unity, while the battle axe stands for the preparedness to defend the union. The branch of olive is symbolical of our love of peace. Very truly yours, A. Weinman." As an artist, Adolph Weinman was looking back in time to the ancient Romans for his inspiration. He was obviously not looking forward to a totalitarian regime that did not yet exist at the time the design was created. The image has survived in the modern world as a representation of magisterial or collective power, law, and governance. The fasces survived the stigma of the Second World War, and in the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C., nearly identical reproductions of Weinman's fasces wrapped in olive branches, installed when the chamber was remodeled in 1949 to 1950, are featured prominently on the wall behind the rostrum in the chamber of the United States House of Representatives. Not only does the presence of the fasces in the House chamber represent that place as a seat of authority for the Republic, but it visually reminds the representatives therein that their authority is made strong by the people they are there to represent. Looked at in this proper context, the choice of this symbol for a coin of the United States was a brilliant and visually poetic choice. 1 Corinthians 1:10 says, "I beseech you, my brothers, so that all of you agree, and that there be no divisions among you, but that you be united in the same mind and the same judgment." Our country is full of division today. Look here at the dime's symbols of liberty and freedom of thought and strength through unity, wrapped in the spirit of peace. The founding fathers rallied us together with the phrase, "United we stand, divided we fall." We must choose to band together as brothers, with the red cords of self-sacrifice, to overcome our differences and rediscover a nation that, when united, can do great things. In 1916, when Europe was in the crucible of the Great War, America was very divided over what to do. The German Navy sunk the Lusitania in May 1915, and Weinman was among a very large contingent of German Americans who feared persecution if the U.S. declared war. That year, incumbent President Woodrow Wilson ran on a re-election platform of neutrality. His most popular campaign slogan was, quote, "He kept us out of war." If honorable debate, clear thinking, and a fair presidential election campaign was conducted in November, perhaps we would find our national voice with unified resolve. I can't help but feel that Weinman made a personal statement about unity, peace, and the enlightenment that comes from liberty and freedom of thought. Many former nations who entered the war were torn apart by armies without or by revolution within. No matter what happened, Weinman wanted us to act as a unified front. To Wilson's credit, when British intelligence intercepted a secret telegram in February 1917 sent by Germany to Mexico asking them to join the war on the Central Powers side, he heard the unified outrage of the American people and appealed to Congress to join the war to end all wars. 1942 was also a pivotal year for our nation, as the ashes of Pearl Harbor's destruction were still glowing hot. We once again realized that we needed each other, and our nation's flag was featured on the covers of over 100 participating periodicals for their July issues with the motto, "United we stand." I pray to God that it doesn't take another attack on our soil through the hubris of other nations who, seeing the weakness in our division, shed blood before we once again remember our fundamental need for unity. As a coin that embodies the French design aesthetic of reviving classical Roman symbolism, it stands the test of time as a piece of beautiful design. As a Merc collector for almost 40 years, I am very proud to own this great piece of classical American history. Thanks for tuning in to learn more about the history of money with me today. And don't forget to subscribe to receive a notification when, Lord willing, I release my next video. Thanks to the viewers who commented that I make videos about the Mercury Dime and the Buffalo Nickel. I really hope to get more feedback from you, my viewers, about what coin I should discuss next. Thanks everyone for your feedback and support. Until next time, in God we trust.